The wooden wheels groaned against the stone path as Tina, Fern, Luna, Vamp, and Ava gripped the sides of their wagon. The air turned heavy, thick with the scent of warm dough and caramelized sugar. It was a cloying, suffocating sweetness that masked the sharp, metallic tang of fear. They passed the outer gates, where soldiers stood with spears leveled, eyes scanning the horizon for an enemy that had not yet struck. The wagon pulled to a halt before the palace doors. Inside the throne room, the silence was absolute. King Luke sat on his dais, his knuckles white as he gripped the armrests. He did not offer a greeting. He leaned forward, his gaze locking onto the group. "The Milk Kingdom has severed all trade," he said, his voice tight. "Their borders are closed, their armies are mobilizing, and our scouts report movement in the pass. A war is coming, and it will burn this kingdom to ash if we do not find the cause." He stood up, pacing the length of the dais. "I need you to go there. Find out why they have turned against us. If there is a chance for peace, take it. If not, prepare for the worst." Millie and Ben climbed into the wagon, their eyes fixed on the road ahead. The journey was a slow transition from the golden, sun-baked wheat fields of the Cookie Kingdom to the vast, chilled dairy pastures of the north. The air grew thin and biting, smelling of damp earth and cold cream. Tina and the others watched the horizon, expecting to see barricades or marching soldiers, but the landscape remained eerily quiet. They reached the gates of the Milk Kingdom by dusk. Inside the throne room, the temperature dropped further. Queen Anna stood by a frosted window, her back to the door. She turned slowly, her expression unreadable and guarded. "King Luke speaks of war?" she asked, her voice steady and cold. "He is mistaken. Our borders are secure, and our people have no interest in his petty grievances." She gestured to the empty hall. "There is no hostility here. You have been misled by rumors." Ava stepped forward, her hand resting on her belt, sensing the lie. Anna did not blink. She maintained her composure, but her fingers tapped a rhythmic, nervous pattern against her side. The group exchanged glances. Ava pressed the issue, pointing toward the dense, uncharted forest that separated the two realms. "If the borders are secure, then the threat lies within the woods," she stated. Queen Anna hesitated, her gaze flickering toward the heavy doors of the hall. Finally, she signaled to two figures standing in the shadows. Oak and Mila stepped forward, their movements precise and disciplined. "They will accompany you," Anna commanded, her voice devoid of warmth. "But do not expect to find anything but trees and silence." The group departed, the wagon wheels crunching over frost-covered gravel until they reached the tree line. The forest stood as a wall of gnarled timber, the canopy so thick that daylight struggled to reach the mossy floor. Tina stopped, her hand hovering over her weapon. The air here vibrated with a low, rhythmic hum. Suddenly, the clouds above the canopy parted. Two massive shapes spiraled down, their wingspan blocking out the light. They landed with a force that shook the ground, scales shimmering with a surreal blend of milky white and sugary iridescent hues. Zaka and Nipa had arrived. The dragons lowered their heads, eyes glowing with ancient intelligence, and fell into step alongside the party. The mood shifted into the sharp anticipation of the unknown. The forest was unnaturally still, the air heavy with the scent of damp stone and decay. Tina led the way, pushing through a thick curtain of vines that clung to a jagged rock face. Behind the foliage, a narrow, dark fissure yawned open, exhaling a draft of stagnant air. They squeezed inside, the light from the dragon's scales casting long, flickering shadows against the damp walls. As they descended deeper, the tunnel widened into a cavernous chamber. Without warning, the shadows detached themselves from the stone, coalescing into jagged, shifting forms. The first mob lunged from the darkness. Vamp drew his blade, the steel ringing out as it met the creature's hardened hide. The cavern erupted into chaos. Steel clashed against stone. Fern and Luna moved in tandem, driving their weapons into the encroaching mass, while Ava held the line, her shield absorbing the heavy, rhythmic blows. They fought with desperate precision, until the last of the shadow mobs shattered into harmless dust. Silence returned to the cave. The party pushed deeper into the cavern, their weapons still drawn, until the tunnel opened into a vast, vaulted chamber. In the center stood an ancient shrine, its surface etched with symbols of both milk and cookie heritage. 2 stone pedestals rose from the floor, intended to hold the balance of the realms. One pedestal held a shimmering cookie-themed relic, but the other was bare. Tina approached, her fingers tracing the cold, empty stone. A faint, glowing residue clung to the surface, pulsing with a dying light. "It is gone," she said, her voice echoing against the vaulted ceiling. The realization hit the group like a physical blow. Fern stepped forward, holding up a small, handheld tracking orb. As he poured his energy into the device, it flared, casting a thin violet beam. "The thief went that way," Luna noted, pointing toward the dark exit. Without a word, the group turned back, abandoning the silent shrine. They emerged from the cave into the cooling air, the tracking orb guiding them toward the dark, twisted branches of the forest ahead. The twisted forest lived up to its name, branches twisted like agonized limbs, blocking out the sky and weaving a canopy of impenetrable gloom. The violet beam from Fern's tracking orb pulsed, cutting through the thick, stagnant fog that clung to the forest floor. Every step felt heavy. Suddenly, the trail led them into a small, unnatural clearing. Before them stood a house constructed entirely of hardened candy, its walls glistening. A figure leaned against the doorframe, idly tossing a glowing marble into the air. It was Harold. She watched them with profound, soul-crushing boredom. "You are late," she drawled, her eyes darting between the group and the dragons. She stood up, brushing crumbs from her hands. The air around her crackled with raw, unstable magic. "I have been waiting for something interesting to happen in this miserable place for weeks." Tina gripped her weapon, but Harold only laughed. She gestured toward the path ahead, her expression shifting to one of predatory curiosity. "The thief is just ahead, and he is far greedier than you can imagine. I think I will come along." She vanished and reappeared at the edge of the clearing. The trail ended abruptly in a desolate, cratered clearing. In the center stood a hulking, gluttonous creature, its frame bloated and distorted. It clutched the glowing milk gemstone to its chest, its eyes darting with frantic, animalistic hunger. As the group stepped into the open, the creature let out a guttural roar and lunged, its massive weight shaking the ground beneath their feet. It moved with terrifying, unnatural speed, closing the distance in seconds. Vamp saw the opening and shouted, "Now, merge!" Zaka and Nipa did not hesitate. The 2 dragons banked sharply, their wings beating in perfect synchronization as they dove toward each other. They collided in midair, not with a crash, but with a blinding, silent flash of white light that swallowed the clearing. The air hummed with a sudden, violent static. When the light faded, the 2 dragons were gone. In their place hovered a singular, massive entity, its scales swirling with milky white and deep, sugary gold. The fused dragon unleashed a torrent of pure, crackling energy, pinning the beast to the earth and bathing the entire clearing in an overwhelming, radiant glow. The fused dragon held the beast pinned, its massive wings creating a vortex of pressure that flattened the surrounding brush. The creature thrashed, its claws gouging deep furrows into the dirt as it fought the relentless torrent of energy. "Together!" Tina shouted, her voice cutting through the roar of the wind. The group moved as one. Fern and Luna flanked the left, while Ava and Vamp surged forward, their weapons glowing with synchronized intent. Harold stood at the periphery, weaving a web of binding magic that tightened around the beast's limbs, restricting its frantic movements. The creature let out a high-pitched, desperate shriek, its bloated form shuddering under the weight of the assault. Seeing the opening, Millie and Ben darted in, striking the beast's massive hands with precise rhythmic blows. The creature's grip faltered. The glowing milk gemstone slipped from its fingers, tumbling through the air before landing with a dull thud in the soft earth. The beast collapsed, its energy spent, defeated by the sheer force of their unity. The fused dragon eased its hold, hovering as the group stood breathless. The journey back to the shrine was swift. Tina placed the milk gemstone onto its pedestal, and the ancient mechanism clicked into place, bathing the chamber in a soft, steady light. With the relic secured, the group traveled to the border where King Luke and Queen Anna stood waiting. The air between the two monarchs was thick with residual suspicion. They stood 10 paces apart, eyes locked, neither willing to yield. Luna stepped forward, holding the tracking orb that showed the path of the beast, proving the manipulation that had nearly ignited a war. As the evidence of the creature's interference became clear, the tension in the monarch's shoulders vanished. King Luke bowed his head, and Queen Anna extended a hand. They moved to a stone table set between their territories, where a formal peace treaty lay waiting. With a single, decisive stroke of a quill, the document was signed, sealing the alliance. The border guards lowered their weapons, and the heavy gates between the kingdoms swung open. Millie, Ben, Oak, and Mila stood in formation, witnessing the end of the hostility. Harold watched from the edge of the clearing, a rare, genuine smile touching her lips. The heroes stood together, their mission complete, the weight of their journey finally lifting into the quiet, peaceful air of a kingdom at rest.